So I am recording this webinar for you all to access later, and thanks for joining us. The purpose of this webinar is to have a look at how you can use your Stova event, which is a registration site that might be currently live with active registrations, and quickly add in some virtual components or even hybrid components. Maybe there's some issues with traveling on site, or you have some people that are requesting to access the digital library or the virtual components of your live on-site event. So that's what we want to focus on today based on your feedback from information that you'd like to get about the platform. So what I'm currently showing you is the foyer, the virtual foyer that you just traveled through to join this webinar today. So you can see I have a drop down here showing my agenda, the virtual days. If you're virtual event had sessions covering multiple days, this drop down would list those different days. You can see that you clicked on the join button and this little arrow looks like it's pointing out of the box. And that arrow pointing out of the box tells me that you joined an external technology. And we are currently in a Zoom webinar. So if you're using Zoom or Teams or some other variation of virtual platforms, you can quickly embed it into your existing registration site in Stova. So this is just a reminder of what you just experienced to join this Zoom webinar. So I have here a convention about fencing. I know nothing about the sport, getting ready for the Summer Olympics, but I now have the challenge where I need to take this live registration site and add some virtual components, but I already have registrations. It's already a live event. So what do I do? And my first plan of attack is to adjust the categories. And I've added a couple of subcategories into the main category. So I just used to have I'm attending in person, but I've had to add a couple of other categories. I need to attend virtually now. I'm actually not quite sure yet. I haven't quite decided, or I just need access to the digital library. So whatever your verbiage, your variation of building your hybrid event, you can add those subcategories. But for these subcategories, I now need to go into those subcategories and adjust the questions that they're going to answer, because I don't need the subcategories to be answering questions about dietary or travel information. So I'm going to open up the subcategory, and inside all categories, don't forget this little quick button here, my visible questions button. I'm going to quickly pop in here and toggle off the questions that I don't need this category to see. So rather than going into every single question and every single session and every single option, every single hotel, every single travel question, if I had them set up, I could quickly go into the category and just turn on and off the questions that I need this category to see. So I'm definitely going to take advantage of that quick editing feature to adjust what that category workflow is going to look like. I've adjusted those categories and those subcategories. And I'm going to go ahead and send you guys this link right now in my Zoom chat, and you can go ahead and register for my quick fencing event. So go ahead and register in there. And I'm going to give you the ability to modify your existing registration. So let's pretend you have an existing registration, but you've changed your mind. I'm going to permit people to log back in and modify, but I am going to tick this box that says you are permitted, when you log back in and modify, to change your category and subcategory. So I'm pushing back that layering of change all the way up to category and subcategory, and I'll give you the option to cancel your registration. So you can go ahead and register for this event. You'll get the confirmation email. You'll see the modification link in that confirmation email. So let's take a quick peek at my confirmation email. I'm going to open it up. And if I pop into the HTML version of this modification email, I'm going to include that modify link hidden behind some text, and I'm going to include the instructions or the parameters that you need to log back in and modify that existing registration. So I'm definitely going to put that in the hands of you, the attendees. Now let's head to that registrant list, and I want to take a quick sneak peek at that email before I start blasting it out. So let me grab one of these registration records, click on send email, And right here, I'm going to see that snapshot of that email. I see that that information is populating correctly. I can click here to modify this registration, and I can test. I did want it to open up in a new tab. So I'm just checking all my emails before I do any further work in here. Now I'm going to go back into registration settings, and you all should see the virtual tab. Now this virtual tab is available to all Stova clients immediately. You automatically all get this. If you're not seeing this virtual tab, it may be that you're logging in as a certain profile, a user profile that has not got the ability to see that technology. So if you do have a profile that you're not seeing this tab, you need to contact your Stova administrator in your organization who set up those user profiles and let them know you actually need access to this technology. I'm going to tell the Stova platform this registration site is now becoming a virtual event as well as an in-person event. And you can see here you've got your event URL that was there before, but I'm going to tell the platform this is actually going to become a virtual event as well. And I'm going to click on Save and Stay. And now on the top right hand corner, it has generated the new URL, which is the registration site with the virtual technology and the event ID number. So that's where I'm getting that virtual lobby link. And as soon as I switch it to a public lobby, you will be able to log in to that virtual lobby. So I'm going to switch it to public. Now, nobody knows that it's there yet. I haven't distributed that virtual lobby yet. It's still sort of secret, but I can turn on attendance and I can switch your status from confirmed to active based on the fact that you touched or logged into that lobby itself. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Save and Stay. So you all get this already. Inside individual sessions, we still might have some sessions that are totally in person. Not going to tweak that, but we might have some sessions now that we need to run virtually. So I'm going to open up one of my sessions, give it the appropriate name. And if I scroll down a wee bit in the session editor, I have a section paragraph called virtual session. So I'm going to tell the platform this particular session is a virtual session. And what you get in Stova right now as the baseline feature available to you is the ability to plug in an external link to a Zoom, Teams, or a WebEx. So I'm going to switch to the external link for Zoom, Team, or WebEx, and I need to pop in those links here. Now, some of those technologies may have a different link for attendees versus hosts. The Zoom webinar that you just came in through, it didn't have a different link for Zoom or hosts. I just had the same link. So now I'm going to copy a Zoom link that I already created. And I'm just going to paste in that Zoom link. And now when you log into the foyer, you're going to experience just what you experienced today, this morning. You click on that Zoom link and it brings you out to join that Zoom meeting. So you automatically get all of this, what I've shown you so far, with the Stova technology. Now, a couple of things I'd like to show you in the reports and functions. If I click into reports and functions, I'm going to head over to my BFF, my best friend here. And in my registrant list, I'd like to create a view. So I've got my default view, show me what people answered in questions, show me what sessions they're planning on coming to. But I'm going to add a new view. And this view is going to show me some of the virtual aspects. So I'll bring in the conference number. That's the pop-up that allows me to see somebody's record. I'm going to bring in that category, and I am using subcategories, but I'm also going to bring in the last modified date and time of that record and who modified the record, because this is going to say the word attendee if you logged in and modified it, or it'll say my name if I went in and modified people's records on their behalf as an admin. But I have here two other tick boxes that were not there before. So when I turned on virtual, these two little guys popped up. So did somebody log into the lobby, and did they click on a room to click on that button to take them out to Zoom. So if you needed to use this virtual component and you were taking people out to Zoom or WebEx or something and you needed a dwell time report, you'd have to get that in Zoom or WebEx. What I can tell you is I'm stalking you when you log into the foyer and as soon as you click on that button. So I'm able to see, did you log in? Did you click on that button to join a room? I'm going to go ahead and click on, oops, let me just bring in, I forgot to bring in your names. Hang on, let me go back there and grab first and last name, for example. There we go. So this is my report showing me the action or the activity on that virtual foyer. And did you click on that button? So here I can see, did anyone log in today? And did they click on that link to join that room? So that's what I'm able to track given the technology that I have here. Now, under registration settings, I want to show you a couple of little things that I would add into various emails. I may have set up a custom email. You received a custom email, I believe, yesterday. I sent you one this morning at 8:30 reminding you the webinar was at 11. And then I sent you another one at 10:30 saying, oh, the webinar is starting soon. You know, maybe 3 emails before virtual webinar is too much. I think you need to decide what should be your cadence of prodding for people to remind them that that virtual room is about to go live. That will be something you would decide based on your attendee, what their personalities are like, etc. But what I can do inside my emails, and this email here, I can put in a merge field that says, these are the sessions that you selected. So this is an available merge field for you, which is sort of hiding a wee bit under miscellaneous. This is a wee table that shows you these sessions that you selected in the agenda order. So that's the order that they're listed in the agenda tab physically, because you could physically move them around. Maybe you want to compress or segment all the virtual rooms in a chunk and then the in-person in a chunk. So that will be a good use of keeping them in agenda order. Or you could set the table to say, show them all the sessions that they selected in chronological order. So that's just going to sequence in time. And then maybe I just want to show people absolutely every available session and location, regardless of whether they selected them or not. Now, if you have tick box sessions, they will only show up in your virtual foyer if you actually ticked that box. So tick box sessions must be selected by your attendee in order to show up in that virtual foyer. So I'm definitely going to take advantage of that merge field, hiding under the miscellaneous bucket. I could include it in the initial confirmation email, but what I definitely want to do, I'm going to clone my beautifully branded initial confirmation email, and I'm going to wake up the email that says, you've updated your registration. Thanks for your updates. And I'll tweak this email. So thanks for the updates. No promises, but just a note to say we got your updates. So I'm definitely going to have an email ready to go. Now that email has woken up and is available because I turned on the permissions to modify a reg. So if you're not seeing it here, it's because you didn't actually wake up the feature of allowing somebody to log in and modify their reg. So I'm going to wake up that email. And because I've also given you permission to cancel your registration, I'm going to wake up that cancellation email. And maybe I'll BCC myself on that cancellation email, but maybe I only need to be really BCC'd on emails that are going to speakers or going to people in person. So I might actually send separate emails for the cancellation, not because the content of the email is different, but because I actually want to be BCC'd on the speakers or on the staff members or something like that, because I actually need to take an action on that quite quickly if somebody cancelled and they were of that persona. So sometimes I'm duplicating emails just because I need to know what's going on the background. So that's my registration cancellation email. So sorry, you can't attend our event. So I'll quickly set up those emails, managing modifications, adding in the virtual components, using that external technology. And now that I've turned on virtual, if I head here to the theme editor, this is where you're going to make that login page look quite nice. By default, it's got this confetti type picture. And all of this content on that login page could be adjusted, that text. All of this can be branded to your look and feel. I have the image spec guides on the best dimensions of images for the login page. And if I go to the lobby page, you have full control over what this looks like. You could put a link in here to a video that would play in situ. So if you have a video you'd like to display on here, you can certainly add in a video link. So that's rather nice to put inside the foyer. So maybe I'm going to encourage people, log in 10 minutes prior to launch time and watch a welcome video from our CEO. Again, we can tweak all of the branding and make all of this look according to your styling. Another thing that you can do is you can manually put in some recordings and attach some to those virtual rooms and make them available. So you may have a virtual room, but the recording isn't something you want to make available right away. You'd actually like to take the recording and maybe package it, shrink it down a bit, maybe put some AI editing on it and remove the ums and the ahs and things like that. And then you could put in the link to the recording here. So that's what I'm actually going to do right here is instead of automatically making the recording from the webinar, just default as being posted there, I'm actually going to control the recording and put in a playable URL link. So your YouTube, your On24 link, and make that available in the foyer itself. So I'm going to just grab a different screen for a second. So bear with me while I drag over another wee screen. If you've got questions, you can certainly pop them in the chat there. I have some of my Stova colleagues available to answer your questions. So this is a busier foyer. I was in music mode last night doing this one. But if you go to previous dates, you can see that they're populating. And here is how the recording is looking for the live webinar that I'm doing with you now. This is the recording that will display. I think I just had a static screen on here. So, you can just, the little recording that's done in the Stova platform just pops up in situ. But if you put in an external link to that recording, when I click on recording and click on play, so this is the YouTube link that I popped in, you can see it goes ahead and opens that on another tab for me. So that's what my foyer would look like with various recordings in it. And you get all of that in your current version of the Stova platform. So you get the foyer, the external links, etc., that report that shows you who logged in, and then you could manage modifications and communications with your emails. If you do not have a subscription to Zoom or WebEx or anything like that, Stova has a bigger component of virtual where you could actually use the Stova virtual technology to run your events. So let me switch my screens here and show you what this looks like. So here's my Jazz Alive registration site. And under registration settings, I have those same tabs visible to me. But when I go to add in a session, instead of just having the option to add in the external link, once I turn on virtual, you've got this extra set of paragraph options here where you can say, I'm going to use the Stova virtual room, the webinar presentation room. This will have a webinar live streaming to 15,000 people. You could have speakers, guest speakers with up to 15 cameras on for the speakers. So on the cubes showing up on the screen. You could use the Stova collaborative meeting room. This is a slightly different room where you can create breakout rooms. You can have 250 people in this room. There's a limit to 16 cameras on at a time. If you choose to use the Stova technology, you have to assign a virtual host. And that is the person who's going to open the doors of the electronic Stova room and keep the doors open. And the host is the person that has the technical ability to start the breakout rooms, start the recording, hand the microphone over to the speaker, hand the screen share over to the speaker. So you can imagine on site, if we're all in a room and I've got the microphone and I'm walking around the floor and handing the microphone to people for questions, that's what I'm replicating as the electronic host in the virtual technology. And I have to register those electronic hosts for this event. Now, I also have an additional feature here with session attendance. I can say, mark them as attended for this session once they stay in that room for up to 50% of the assigned length of time of that room. So I'm really stalking you now. Or minimum, they have to be in there for 5 minutes. And now I can download reports on who was registered as attended for this session. So I get dwell time reports very accurately when I'm in the Stova realm. Once I assign speakers to be speaking at this room, I can have the speakers' cameras be automatically turned on when they come into that room, or I can turn them off by default, and then I would bestow the technical ability to turn on web cameras. So a little bit of thought has to go into the planning of the virtual realm using the Stova virtual room, because we have the attendee, who's the guest sitting in the chair looking at the room. We have the speaker, who has to be identified as the speaker for the session coming into the room, and the speaker automatically has their microphone and their camera on, ready to go. And then I have the electronic host coming into a virtual room, and the electronic host has the ability to open the room, start the recording, do breakout rooms, and be the manager of the room. So it should feel almost as busy as an in-person event, but you have similar responsibilities to an in-person event. You know, who's managing this session room, who's in charge of the microphone. So when I create these virtual sessions and I assign the speakers to these rooms, I have to, in the speakers list, I have to make sure the speakers are registered, but I also need to make sure the speaker is connected to their registration record. So a little bit of an extra step here, because now the platform is going to recognize, oh, Nyonika has logged in to the foyer. I see Nyonika is the speaker for that one session. So when Nyonika comes in as a speaker, she's going to see the session that says join the session. Whereas I, as an electronic host, I've been assigned to this room, I see the word start. Now this little symbol here with the headphones, that tells me it's a webinar room. And this little symbol where you've got some people very close together sharing their germs, that's the collaborative room. So everybody's going to be able to see each other or talk to each other, etc. So you can see the different symbols there. But I could be a host of room 1, I could be a speaker for room 2. It's when I join the room that my persona is identified and those technological affects are bestowed upon me for my permissions in here for this room. I'm going to send you this virtual lobby link in your chat right now. Whoopsie. And you can go ahead and log into this virtual foyer, because I downloaded your registrations for the current webinar that you're looking at, and I imported your registration into this event here. So that virtual foyer, you can pop your email and last name in there and you'll see a slightly different foyer. Now, using this full packet of the virtual foyer in Stova, I could add a lot more bits and bobs to the left-hand panel. So go ahead and log into that foyer, and I'm going to, for example, turn on the news feed, turn on the event feed. I'll turn on the info box. I'll add in a couple of polls, allow you to ask questions. So in this virtual foyer here, if I just refresh my screen, you can see here now, I could pop in some other bits and pieces here. This is like a Facebook feed. I could allow my attendees to chat. I could add in external links to other areas. So when you log in here, you'll see a beefier feel and vibe to this virtual foyer, just for you to see that.
Mads, there's a question here. Can you add a virtual session to an in-person event? Example, a facilitated breakout room.
Absolutely. What you'd have to do for that in-person event is those folks are already registered for the event, and you would have to send them this virtual lobby link. So if you were using a mobile app, you could send them this virtual lobby link. This link here is mobile responsive. Send it to their phone and absolutely have them log in, or maybe send them the email, because in the email I might want to just include the instructions on which email you've registered with, and the parameters for that second one. So yeah, we have this happen all the time, especially in the last few months. It's gotten a little bit more busy. I'm going to go into reports and functions, and I was able to show you there in the previous event, that who logged into the foyer, what rooms did they join? Great. But let's have a quick look at this attendance report. This is your dwell time report. So I can run a dwell time report per person or by session. So this would show me, for this virtual room here, how many people logged in, how long did they stay. So I could run it by session or I could run it by attendee. So if you had to issue certificate of attendance, but you absolutely needed to make sure people had their butts in that room for at least 30 minutes, this dwell time report is tracking that time. So I'm going to just pop into report settings. I hope you all know. Go ahead and check your report settings. What other fields can you add to this report? I'm definitely going to pop in here the minute they first logged in, the minute they left that room, how much time they spent in that room. And by the way, I am making the recordings available. Did they actually come in and look at the recordings afterwards? Did they view the recordings? So I always want to have a check at my report settings, adding views, adding filters, check here. So if I open up this record now, it's going to show me that's the actual session date, start time, how many times I looked at the recordings, when did I log in, how long did I spend in there. I'm really getting an accurate dwell time report, so I could dump this into Excel en masse and then prove the worth of my event and how it's functioning. So let me pause here for a moment. And what I'd like to ask Stefano to help me understand here. Now, Stefano is one of our professional services team members. So he goes on site, he manages hybrid events, he builds them, he works with clients very closely on how all of this functions. So I just wanted to ask you, Stefano, what would you consider major pain points or things to be, to keep an eye out about when you're dealing with managing a hybrid or a virtual event?
Yeah, thanks, Mads, and hi everyone. Pleasure to join the webinar here. I'm on the professional services team, so we're considered like platform experts. I help on a lot of virtual events in terms of the configuration, the building, consultation, in terms of those projects, and getting ready for the virtual events. And we actually have a colleague, Sean, that's joined as well, who helps with remote support for these events from our professional services team. As Mads pointed out, about. There are some misconceptions from these virtuals, and I'd say one of the biggest ones that I see is that virtual events take just as much prep, planning, and work as on-site events, and potentially that increases to like 1.5 times or double if you're doing a hybrid event, since you have to consider both those on-site pieces and those virtual pieces, which sometimes can be overlooked by those who are newer to setting up and managing virtual events. There are some best practices that I'll pass across to the group, really stressing the importance of the run of show for a virtual event, understanding those roles, responsibilities, as Mads mentioned, who's a host and who has those privileges in the platform, who's a speaker and who has those privileges in the platform, versus just your standard attendees. For your host, who is going to open and close the session, who is going to broadcast, start and stop that broadcast, which it opens it up for the attendees, who is going to be the person to share the presentation, whether that is a host or the host needs to give that ability to a speaker. Definitely always want to have at least one host in every session in the virtual platform, but it is recommended to have multiple, and that's in case if someone dropped off, there's someone as backup, but also if someone's managing a technical issue, there's someone else there to manage maybe the run of show and the actual session going on. For your speakers, their responsibility to show up on time, make sure that they're there before the session start and not at session start time, because we want them there in the green room. We want them there testing their devices, their cameras, their microphones before we go live with that session. Your schedule is super important with the run of show of when your green room is going to open up. Does that need to be 30 minutes before, 20 minutes before, 15 minutes before the session is going to begin? Because you want to get people in there for your hosts and speakers to test these elements before you start your session and go live. The settings of when your attendees are going to be allowed to join in the room should be added to your schedule so everyone's aware. The potentially working with an AV team, maybe you have holding slides, music, RTMP feeds. We just want to jot that down in the run of show so everyone knows everyone's role in that session and in that event. And then you also want to consider concurrent and back-to-back sessions. They should have different hosts managing them, just so that if one session is going on and live, the other one is prepping. You have another host in there to welcome people to the green room, troubleshoot for any technical issues of that nature. One other important part of emphasis for best practices is a final review and quality check of your site, of your configuration settings of the site, the sessions that you have set up and the settings of those sessions, your site design, maybe your modules, as Mads mentioned, that you turn on or off, whether it's the exhibitor module, attendee directory, the chat, the Q&A, things of that nature. We want to make sure all the settings are set correctly before we, of course, go live for your event. With those session settings, presentation versus collaborative sessions, and that's how the session's going to appear to your end users in the platform. Do you need them on camera, talking on mic, or are they just sitting there and viewing the presentation? As Madge mentioned, are you going to record the session? Or are you not recording? Those types of settings we just want to ensure are all toggled, and we do a final check of those before the event begins. The important emphasis on hosts and speakers, especially with tying them to the correct sessions and linking them to the user profile. So everyone needs to be registered for the event, but then our platform needs to understand who do we give privileges as a host and who do we give privileges as a speaker. And we have to tie those things together as we configure and set up the sites in the back end of the Stova platform in the admin portal. Really put yourselves in the shoe of the attendees, I'd say, when you're setting up your site, you're testing the site, trying to figure out how you want to configure that and those pieces. Put yourself in their shoes, because that's your end user and who's ultimately who you're putting on this event for, right? And last thing I'll call out is the speaker tech checks and AV testing is
Mhm.
so important. I'd say a week before, 2 weeks before, get speakers in the platform, AV team in the platform, but also do it again when either you're on site doing a hybrid event or the event week or right before your event. So everyone is ready to go. You don't have any issues with devices, testing, any of that stuff. There's no hiccups, let's say, right before your event goes and starts. And then I'll just shout out my PS team. We help on projects all the time. So if anyone needs assistance, you can talk to your account manager to get professional services help as someone like me to come in to help your team along with the project and set yourself up for success. But thanks, Mads. I appreciate it. I'll pass it
Yeah,
back
no,
over.
thanks, Stefan. That's great. Yeah, I use you guys all the time to help me on my webinars. It's great. Um,
Yep.
so I'm showing here an Excel spreadsheet, which is a sample run of show. So who's opening the room, who's controlling the room, who's going to start recording, is the assigned speaker assigned correctly? Are we publishing the recording afterwards? How are we doing that? So I'm sure you've got much beefier sample run of shows there that you want to put in. And then I've just opened up my broadcast webinar room here. So I started this room as the host. I can turn on and off my microphone, check my camera, and I've done a lot of speaker tech checks over the last few years. And it is a browser-fed platform. So they don't need to download a software like Zoom or WebEx. It's run through your Chrome browser. So if your speaker was using a Mac, for example, you'd have to have the Mac permission set up to share the camera in Chrome. And if the speaker was going to share their desktop screen, Chrome would have to have permissions in the Mac settings to share. I think it's screen recordings under security settings. So those are the only fiddly bits that I meet with speakers doing that. So you can see as the host, I have the ability to start this broadcast. So this is us streaming to 15,000 people. And on the back end, when I originally created this session, I had pre-assigned to record the broadcast, who the speakers were, etc. So all of that's locked in. At the moment I start this broadcast, I can't go back to the settings and change things like change the are we recording or not. So that's why that run of show is very important. I'm stepping through the design and planning of this event online prior to it. I have a question here. We're looking at different platforms. We'll turn on the whole virtual realm in your account, not just the core that you're given, right, where you put in the external technology, but if you want to give it a whirl with what the Stova platform has to offer, by all means, we'll turn it on, run a couple of events and give it a try and see what you think. I've been very happy with it. I've been using it consistently for the Ask the Trainer monthly webinars. And sometimes I do a Zoom webinar and sometimes I use the Stova platform. So I've been varying it up. Let me start the collaborative room. I think for this one, I had set up the breakout rooms to be starting. So as Stefano said, if I was the host for the 11 a.m., don't put me as the host for the 11:05 session. I need to be able to jump into the next one. So on the left-hand side here, I'm allowed to create the breakout rooms, push people into the rooms. Once I create those rooms, I can manually push people's butts into those rooms, or I can do the auto assign feature as well in there. So your dwell time reports are still going to populate who's in those virtual rooms as well. But you can see I've added more modules down here that could be visible to different people. And yes, you could put in sponsors' logos under those modules. I could give a whole module here dedicated to one sponsor, but you could also have a little ticker tape ad scrolling across the bottom here if you wanted to, for everybody to see. So yes, you can do that. We had, great fun with this when COVID came out and it all got, finalized really quickly, but we've definitely enhanced it a lot more. I'll just show you in the other realm that Stefano just mentioned. So if I turn on virtual, you have here the ability to set up the beta stream. Now this looks more like a TV studio where you can set up lower thirds and ticker tapes, and the whole back end looks like a TV studio will be set up where you can lay up the speakers and sequence the music and the screen holds and everything. So a lot of great stuff in here, but it really does feel like a TV studio, that sort of thing. So that's what that technology is there. And it is completely out of beta now, but that works beautifully as well. But quite a busy little thing to set up. So you'd need a really big run of show. Another option that's available to you as well, you'll see another option down here if you have it on your account, is using the RTMP feed. So if you are using that AV team on site and they want RTMP feeds, you would select RTMP feed here. And actually, Stefano, could you go ahead and turn it on for this event for me? 882430, and I'll show it in a second. You could that key, the RTMP feed key, you can pop that right into that session editor the morning of the session. Your on-site AV team will probably give you the key a couple of hours prior to the session. You pop it right in there, and that live feed streams as soon as you open up that room. So if I just leave this room as a host, I can kick everybody out, or I can leave it open and let everybody in there. I don't need to stay in there as an electronic host in a collaborative room. But as soon as you start that room for the RTMP feed, that key triggers right away and the feed is live. So the just to answer, make sure I'm getting to these questions.
Yeah, the RTMP setting is enabled now.
Okay.
And there is a question about sponsor logos under the modules along with links to their website. Is that possible?
Yeah, absolutely. Sponsors logos can be down. So in the virtual tab here under modules, you can turn on the sponsors exhibitors logo module there on the left hand side. And when you turn on the exhibitors or the sponsors module, you just start adding in the exhibitors and sponsors here. Or you can give them their very own button there on the left hand side, which contains their PDFs and their pictures and their images and links. Or I can simply put a link to their website right here. So I'll just pop in the Stova website and allow it to open up in a new browser. I'm going to add that module in. You can see now it's placed that module, and then right in my foyer, that will show up in a second here. So I've got the Stova link, and it's going to open up the Stova website for me right away. So you can see how quickly this just refreshes. I mean, I did a refresh of my screen. You don't have to refresh the screen, but it just pops right in there for me. So let's have a quick peek at adding in a wee session here that has the RTMP feed option. Oh, maybe I need to, oh, you need to turn it on for this event, right? But yeah, it's just an extra little line here that says pop in the RTMP feed key. So you've a lot of different options. But if you want to try the Stova world, email me at training@stova.io. I'll pop it on there. And I know you're probably all fed up with me saying this, but here's my Stova LMS. So make sure you have access to the Stova Learning Management Platform. And in here, we have all of the videos for you to access. Here's the videos on the virtual realm and how that works. So if you or any of your team members need to have access to the Stova LMS, please email us. We'll pop you right in there. And if you are doing, if you were planning on using the Stova platform and having your clients having to be trained, or you've got, speakers who need to be trained on these aspects, I do have a public facing website that you could train, just have your host, maybe you have an electronic host who is not a Stova user, is not on your team, it's a client of a client. You can just send them these videos so that when they log into the foyer, they know what to do. And here's speaker training on the front end. So this is just a quick video, 8-minute video showing your, showing your hosts, log into the foyer. And then this is how you manage using the foyer, etc. So if you are going to use this, please take advantage of these videos. And then I've got videos, best practices, remove your noisy jewelry and things like that. Try and have your microphone set to remove ambient noise, etc. So you can certainly share these types of videos publicly with anyone that might be managing the events as a host or as a speaker. So a couple of questions here I just want to get to. When I'm in a room here, so if I go back into this webinar room, for example, there is on the left-hand side a little backstage room, and only assigned hosts and speakers have access to this here. So we could chit chat in the back end before we publicly broadcast that webinar publicly. So you do have a backstage room where only people, your speakers and hosts, can manage that. And I did show you that report where you can see virtual lobby login. And if I was managing a virtual event and I wanted my speaker, I told my speaker, okay, the session starts at 11. I need you in this room at 10:30. We're going to check your microphone, your lighting, etc. I'm kind of watching that lobby report on the registrant list to make sure the speaker's logging in. And if they're 5 minutes late, I'm on my WhatsApp texting them, let's go, I want you in the foyer. So that's what I do to harangue the speakers to get there early enough. Can I facilitate virtual to one-on-one meetings? So it's not an automatic functionality, but yes, you could use the networking module to facilitate those one-on-one meetings. And then you would have to actually create the session, and you could make it visible by question. So you could have that question be something like, I'm going to meet with somebody. So it's not an automatic process. I'd have to manually add the session and connect the dots. But I actually really like that idea. That's a really cool idea. Um, is there a way to add on the screen that the session will start shortly? Yeah, so in that room, let me pop back into that virtual room. In this streaming technology, there is a countdown built into it, so you can put up the countdown and let it come up. However, in my other rooms here, there is no countdown. So what I do is I actually put up a screen of my Google browser. I'll share my window and I'll just use a Google, I'll just search for a countdown ticker and I'll put that on the screen in front of it. Let me just see if there's any other questions. Is there pros or cons to using the external hosting platforms over Stova? So, well, first of all, cost, right? You'd be paying for your cost for your Zoom subscription or your WebEx subscription versus the Stova subscription. So look at money. And secondly, you get a very strong dwell time report through Stova. I know how much time you're in that room. You have to be registered to get into the virtual foyer. So only registered attendees can actually log into the foyer. And if I shared my login with somebody else, they could log into the foyer, but they could not join a room. We'd be kicked out of the room. You can't have two people in the same room. So they would get an error trying to both get in the door. But your dwell time report is fabulous in the Stova platform. It's very helpful to me, and my certificate of attendances are very accurate in Stova. I need you to be there for at least 45 minutes to get the to get the award of having attended that session. So I'm not giving a certificate unless you're there. So if I use the external technology like Zoom or WebEx, I'm sort of at their mercy to get a dwell time report. And I haven't, I know Zoom doesn't do a great one, doesn't track dwell time. So that would be a technical aspect difference between Stova and Zoom or WebEx. And I feel like with the Stova event, if you're planning to build in that virtual component or that hybrid component, you do have to create the session. You have to assign a host. Plan it ahead of time. That run of show, as Stefano said, it's not quite like hopping on a Zoom. You have to put some thought into it because you're planning the event, but there's virtual components to the event. And that takes a wee bit of time. I'm 100% risk averse as a planner. I know if I make a mistake, I'm devastated. But that's just me. But it takes a bit of thought and a bit of planning. But that's why I have a run of show on my tick box list. Is there any other questions I missed there before we wrap up?
There's a follow-up about the chat module and kind of related to the backstage you were mentioning. There's interest to hide it, the chat module, just for hosts and speakers. And I'll comment on that is possible if you do have them set up as separate categories in your event, because you can restrict module visibility based on categories. And also discoverability in the chat module can be set based on those categories.
Yep. So under configuration for the chat module, it's only visible to certain categories. So it's picking up all of the categories for me and subcategories. So it's only visible to staff, it's only visible to speakers, it's only visible to certain categories. So, categories, if you remember now, categories are the backbone of your build. Not only do the categories direct the flow of registration, what questions do you answer, what sessions can you come to, what hotels can you stay at, how much do you pay? So, categories are the backbone of that registration flow. They're also the backbone of the entire experience on site and digitally. What modules do you see? What color badges am I printing for speakers? Because our badging is stackable badging. You make one badge, but you stack all the content on it, filtered by category, by question, by option, by session. So categories is your spine. It's the backbone of the whole build. So it's very important.
Yeah, and I just reread, but I'll clarify. There's also the event fee that you mentioned. That's kind of like a two-way street for attendees to post and event organizers to post in there. The news feed module is available, and that's for event organizers only to post. So that's where you're going to post
Mhm.
event updates, more so bigger messages that your attendees will see, but not interact with. So hopefully that helps clarify.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Yes, I didn't mention that. Perfect. Okay. Yeah, so if you're trying to evaluate which platform is stronger from an attendee experience, webinar, streaming functionality, engagement tools, I love the engagement tools with the virtual foyer that you get with Stova. Even if you just use the minimum aspect that you have, just using the external technology, because you all get that for free with complimentary with your platform right now. But absolutely test the Stova virtual rooms, the Stova virtual webinars. Test all of that, especially the broadcast room. That's actually quite a bit of fun. Um, but we can turn all of that on your account, give it a whirl and see what you think. So test, 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 experience it and see what you want to use before you make the investment. So yeah, test drive your car before you buy it. Bottom line. I chose the Zoom host webinar rather than the Stova equivalent today because that Zoom external link is available to every client today, no matter what package you have with Stova. This is what you get, the ability to create a virtual room and put in that external link. So I wanted you to see and touch and feel what you have now available to you because in today's world, so many of us just have to quickly switch gears and offer virtual components. So you have that. No matter what your plan is with Stova, you've got that now. So take advantage of that if you need it. And that was really my goal, just to kind of show you what you have. Because I think some people don't realize what they have. And if you're not seeing that virtual tab inside the registration settings, it's probably because you're logging in as a user profile where it's not visible. So just check that with your own Stova admin person there. And if you're struggling with that, just email training@stova.io and we can help you with that. I think we got through all the questions, did we, Stefano? Um,
Yeah, there was one last one about a difference between Stova and a platform called Big Marker, but I'm not familiar with Big Marker. Not sure if you are.
nope, not familiar.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. And remember, Stova is a registration site for an event, so it's very secure, right? People have to register to find the foyer. They're not going to know the Zoom link when they click to join the Zoom meeting or they click to join the WebEx meeting. That link is hidden, so it's secure. So you're going to know that the people who are registered for this event are going to be in that Zoom room. So I think that's actually one of the biggest satisfying points for clients is that people who are in that Zoom room are the ones that are registered and should be there. So that's really critical for some of our clients, which is why they use the Stova technology to just create that foyer rather than blasting out a Zoom link and a WebEx link and God knows who's going to be in the room. Um, so that's a really big issue for a lot of my clients. Security these days is massive. It's absolutely massive for most of the clients that I speak to. I just talk to you guys all day long, so I'm hearing all of your pain points all day long, but that's my job. All right, I think we've gotten through all the questions. So thanks a million for popping into the webinar. We wanted to push out this extra wee bit of a webinar about virtual stuff because we've gotten so many inquiries lately. And I'll make this recording available to you all in this foyer. So the next time you log in, you can view this recording. And should you have any questions, training@stova.io is your go-to email. You can always email support@stova.io anytime. They are available, full-time employees around the clock, 7/24 to answer your questions on it. And I would be happy to help you. So one more question here. Is the site unpublished or unfindable? So when I make a registration site, or when I make a website, I can tick a box in the settings to say, do not make this site findable anywhere. So you absolutely can make sure that it's not going to be stored in searches or to be publicly listed. So yes, you can keep it private. And when you click on the link to join the Zoom or to join the webinar, that link code is not made publicly visible anywhere. So somebody has to be registered. Somebody has to log into the foyer to get into that Zoom room or to join the Stova room. And we're not going to have two registrations in there. So I think we got to all of your questions. I think we got to all the questions. Alrighty. Well, top of the morning to you all. It's 12 noon, and that's the only time you're allowed to say top of the morning to you. So, uh, top of the morning, and listen, have a brilliant rest of your week. Thanks for joining us. And if you have any other ideas for webinars that you're struggling with, please pass them over. Thanks a million, everybody. Bye bye.